Well, welcome viewers and listeners to another edition of CHP Talks. I'm here with one of our favorite guests, Mr. Barry Neufeld. Barry, thanks for joining us today again.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, Barry Neufeld, for those who may not know, is a battle-scarred veteran of the culture wars, the battle for the hearts and minds of your children, Canada's youth. Barry has been a trustee on the Chilliwack Board of Education for 27 years, quite a lengthy time. In 2024, he was awarded the first annual Ron Gray Moral Courage Award from the CHP, and that's because of the battles that he's been in and his unswerving devotion to doing the will of God and being a conscience for the education system in British Columbia, among other things. Barry, just would quickly review his careers. Was in retail merchandising 6 years, investment sales 6 years. He was a correctional officer, a probation officer, a family court mediator under the BC Ministry of the Solicitor General for 16 years. He was a youth probation officer for the BC Minister of Children and Families for 6 years, a restorative justice facilitator in the BC Ministry for Children and Family Development for 6 years, and he's done many other things. Those are just a few of the highlights. Most notably, he has been an outspoken critic of our increasingly hypersexualized education system in British Columbia and the imposition on young children of various themes through the system regarding sexual orientation and gender identity. And these he has rightly identified as child abuse. And for that statement, for clarifying that for people, he has gotten into a lot of trouble. So, Barry, before we're going to talk about your current situation. You're still facing charges from the BC Human Rights Tribunal, and we'll get into that. But before we do that, because I'm in Ottawa right now for the National March for Life. Tomorrow, Thursday, May the 8th, is the National March for Life. And it's a very special time for a lot of the people that you and I know who have been engaged in seeking to restore the protection of innocent human life from conception until natural death. But I know that you have been engaged in the past before your current kind of round of issues with the BC Ministry of Education. You have been involved in pro-life work. Can you share a little bit of that with us before we go on to your current situation?
Well, certainly. My interest in pro-life began in childhood because I always knew that I was adopted. I was born in a home for unwed mothers. And I didn't know why, but my birth mother never signed me over for adoption. So when I was 6 months old, I was taken over a ward of the state and put up for adoption. So I have empathy with foster children. So throughout my life, pro-life issues have defined my political career. My first position was on a small hospital board in Creston. And back in 1988, a hospital board, the pro-life people were trying to get control of hospital boards and prevent abortions from happening. So I was quite happy to take on that role. And as you know, the NDP government at the time reorganized the health system in BC so that hospital boards were no longer elected by the public, but were appointed by the provincial government. In the late 90s, through the first internet, I managed to track down my birth mother and discovered that the reason she hadn't signed me for adoption was that she wanted to raise me, but life got difficult for her and she never made the 6-month deadline. But that began a long relationship. I got to know her really well. And I told my story to the newspaper. That's back in the days when I got good reports in the newspaper. And the Pro-Life Society in Chilliwack was quite interested in my story. They wanted me to go on a speaking tour. So this was, I think, in 1998. And the speaking tour was some private schools in British Columbia. First one was St. George's Academy. And the next one was the West Point Grey Academy. And the purpose of my speech was to try and convince high school students to stay abstinent from sexual intercourse before marriage. And the reason was they would have a more stable marriage as a result. And when I was in West Point Grey, I got a little bit off the topic and I started emphasizing how divorce harms children because, as you reported earlier, I was a family court counselor. I've been involved in a lot of broken families. And all of a sudden, a dark, curly-haired young teacher at the back of the room began to sob uncontrollably. And I thought, oh, I was embarrassed. I felt sorry for him. So I wrapped up my speech really quickly. And we closed, and I went back to apologize or introduce or console him. And he was still pretty upset. He was their drama teacher. And his name happened to be Justin Trudeau.
Wow.
So that's how I met Justin Trudeau.
Wow.
Now, I don't think Justin has ever forgotten that because he has instructed CSIS, that's Canada's equivalent of the CIA, that Barry Neufeld is a domestic terrorist, and at every opportunity, they must find ways to try and shut him down. So, of course, when I came out opposing his pet project of gender identity, the media were whipped into a frenzy and they were determined to destroy me. They called me every name in the book. It wasn't just transphobe, but it was homophobe, misogynist, racist, you name it. Any insult they could hurl at me. But never once has any of them made an attempt to debate me on the issues. And even though the CAS report in Britain has upheld my opinion, and the Public Health Service of the United States has upheld my opinion, that transitioning children does more harm than abuse. It's more harm than good. It's abuse. And although the United States and England are behind me, Canada is still on the road. Our current Prime Minister, Mark Carney, had a daughter who he had transitioned at the now discredited Tavistock Centre in England. And he says that he's going to make child transition available without any restrictions anywhere in Canada. And that's his goal. And needless to say, I was quite disappointed at the last federal election, what happened. But I guess everything happens for a reason.
Well, it said that we get the governments that we deserve, and I don't probably not individually deserve. I didn't vote for Mark Carney for sure, but as a people, our society has wandered from the supremacy of God and acknowledgement of God, and certainly from the rule of law as well, which is also a part of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So
there was one little article I wanted to show you, if I can reach it here without losing my headphones. No, just a minute. After my tour with speaking tour, my mother came out to visit me, and we both got invited to a Chilliwack pro-life meeting, and this is what they presented me with.
wow.
Can you see that?
Yeah, we can't read it, but we can see it. No.
Barry Neufeld, with thanks for your service to life, June 2000. And what was interesting, my mom's name was Rose, and they managed to put a rose on the
Oh,
badge there.
nice, nice. Well, that background story on your interaction, your first meeting with Justin Trudeau is certainly very interesting, and I think it raises a lot of questions. What motivates people like him? Uh, you would think that having, if he was fully recognizing at that point the harm of divorce, that wouldn't automatically think that would cause him to become an avid pro-abort, pro-LGBT, pro-transitioning, anti-free speech guy, but that's the path he chose, and uh, at least he heard something from you, and like you say, I'm sure he has not forgotten it. He just didn't respond correctly to it.
Well, as a family court counselor, I helped a lot of couples who were separating and sorting out their visitation and their child maintenance. And heard some pretty horrendous stories of some very ugly breakups. Poor Justin experienced about the worst. Um, Custody struggles, mental health issues, and of course the whole being in the eye of the paparazzi all the time and having no real privacy. It was a very, very traumatic time for him, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. So you now are engaged in a battle. You just told me a few minutes ago before we started recording that you have been engaged in a battle with the BC Human Rights Tribunal for 7.5 years. And can you take us back? There's been other court cases that have come along in the meantime. You've been to the Supreme Court. You've got people suing you for defamation, for speaking the truth. All kinds of things are going on that way. But tell folks how this BC Human Rights Tribunal case started. We know that there's still at least one hearing coming up still now, and your efforts to stand your ground and to fight back on this, and how people can help. So let's start at the beginning. How did this particular BC Human Rights Tribunal case begin?
Well, it was 7.5 years ago that I made a public statement that transitioning children was child abuse. And I based this on the research of the American College of Pediatricians. The media immediately began to try and destroy my reputation. And the two unions began to file complaints against me. And it was in April of 2018, just a little over 7 years ago, that the Chilliwack teachers filed a complaint that I was a danger to their members. Well, the problem with that is a school trustee is elected by the public, and our job is to write policy to assist the educators with educating their children. And we're not really supposed to be in there talking to teachers and mingling with teachers. We have to keep sort of arm's length from them. So it was very difficult for them to prove that I was a danger to their members. So they succeeded in altering their complaint that I am guilty of hate speech because I claim that there are only two genders, and they call that hate speech because I'm denying the existence of non-binary people and all the 58 or 98 or genders that they claim exist. During the tribunal, I asked repeatedly, how do you know there's more than two genders? And every time they kind of went like this, because I know. It was like a religious mantra that they were saying. They had no empirical proof, but it's a core belief of gender ideology, which I have come to understand as a very insidious religious cult. They punish backsliders. They destroy heretics. Um, they have added special words to our language. I mean, when I retired from my government job, the word transgender practically didn't exist. Now we've got things like cisgender and um, pangender and non-binary and all that. It's a whole new vocabulary that they've gotten together with their the dogma of their religion of gender identity.
Right.
And I know I'm right. Regardless of what the secular courts say about me, I know I'm not a hateful person. They can put that label on me if they want. If I'm convicted of hate speech, I could never run for public office in Canada. I probably could not be bonded, but at the ripe old age of 77, I'm not really worried about that. Um, my biggest concern, though, is that if they make this stick with me, it'll make it much easier for them to go after other Christians who are trying to be active in politics. They'll go after pastors, especially youth pastors. And they've got a lot of churches running scared. I'm sure you're aware that the government has given a grant to companies to um, uh, um, evaluate churches on how inclusive they are and how they promote the LGBTQ ideology. If they don't allow gay marriage, that's a black mark. If they don't allow ordination of homosexuals, that's a bad black mark. If they don't allow ordination of transgenders, that's a black mark, and so on and so forth. And the ultimate goal is the proposal is already in the Treasury branch report. They want to do away with the charitable status of houses of worship. Now, that's not just churches, that's mosques, gurdwaras, temples.
Yep.
And if they do away with the charitable status of, say, um, Calgary Baptist Church, for example, um, the church is no longer a charity, so then they will seize the property and give it to a charity that the government approves of. We are heading into a time in Canada where our faith is going to have to go underground. We're going to have to learn lessons from the believers in Eastern Europe during the many years of communism and Nazism, where they worshipped in caves and in the forest and barns out in the field. And I think a lot of pastors are worried about losing their charitable status, worried about losing their lucrative jobs. But I really think we're heading into a time when the church is going to find out what persecution was like in the first century of our faith.
Well, the history, and I'm including the biblical history of the Old Testament, and certainly through the last centuries, the church tends to go soft, tends to compromise, tends to slide into a some kind of a misshapen thing that it ceases to be so strong, articulate, and clear on biblical values until the persecution drives people back to God, I guess. We wish it weren't so. We none of us look forward to persecution and being picked on or having our pockets picked by government bureaucrats, by the secular religion. That's the thing that people need to realize. It's not that we're up against atheists. We're up against a secular religion that holds to their dogmas, at least as strongly as we do as Christians. This, like you mentioned, this, the LGBT sort of agenda, the advocacy of that has become, along with climate change and various things, it's actually a religion, and people they don't want to listen to anything that contradicts the tenets of their faith, even if it's faith in a something much more vague than our Christian God, but they cling to these beliefs just as fiercely, and maybe more so. So it's not nice to think of that. So May 21st, what happens on May 21st?
Well, the hearing dragged on for almost 3 weeks. They had 4 witnesses. I had 5. They tried to dismiss everything my witnesses said. And those arguments wrapped up in March. I still have a $20,000 legal bill for that. But now the lawyers are to come back on May the 21st with their summary and their arguments. My lawyer hasn't even billed me for that yet. And so they will present their arguments before the tribunal, and then the tribunal will adjourn and think about it and come back with their decision. Unfortunately, the tribunal is so biased in this direction that despite the what's going on in England, in the United States, Finland, France, Norway, all these countries have gone back on their gender ideology and don't agree with it anymore. But I'm probably going to be found guilty of hate speech. Well, then I will have to rally the troops again, and I'm more confident that I will find justice in the Supreme Court of British Columbia. I will take this very biased decision of the Human Rights Tribunal to the appeal it to the British Columbia Supreme Court, and they've made a lot of legal errors and been very shoddy in their legal practice. They refused 3 of my witnesses who have lived in this lifestyle and know what it's about. They've transitioned and then come to regret it. And it was just a miscarriage of justice that they refused to hear from those people about the damage that's done by this.
When you say they, you're talking about this panel of 3 non-judges, right? That are
yeah, and of course the teachers union have 3 lawyers on it, and plus the Human Rights Commissioner has had a couple of lawyers in on the case as well. So they're all ganging up on me,
yeah,
and their minds are made up, and they're determined that Neufeld is a hateful person. But the whole purpose of laying their complaint was hopefully to shut me up. Unfortunately, as you know, that didn't work. And
thank God.
I was very honored when you presented me with the Ron Gray Moral Courage Award. It was flattering, but I thought, well, I don't know if it's moral courage or just stubbornness. But I spent a career of working with at-risk kids, and I really care about young people. And I'm at the age where my home is paid for. I don't have a mortgage to worry about. My kids are grown up. I don't have to worry about feeding them. I'm a widower. I don't have a wife to warn me to be more careful. And I have what I hope is a secure pension. And regardless what happens, I know I'm pleasing the Lord, and I know that I'm battling for righteousness, and so I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give in. They tried to get me to settle out of court. but I wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, Barry Neufeld, uh, we are so honored to know you, and I'm honored to be able to call you a friend, and certainly a fellow soldier in these culture wars. Um, if people want to help or they want to know more about it, do you have some information you can share how people can contribute to your ongoing legal costs, past and future, potentially? Um,
Well, my enemies are trying to recoup their legal fees, and there is no way I'm going to ask anybody to help me with that. But I still have some outstanding legal obligations, and therefore, um, a society is formed um, to, and I'm just shared a screen. Can you see it there?
yeah, no, can you scroll up just a little bit? Okay,
You see it there?
yeah,
Rightsandfreedoms.org,
okay,
and they take credit cards, checks, or you can use old-fashioned snail mail, and there's a post office box there, 21004 Chilliwack, or you can do an e-transfer. Um, on the advice of some of my friends, I don't use PayPal or GoFundMe. Um, I used to have a Give, Send, Go account, but during the truckers' dispute, that even got scary. So this is a pretty secure way of supporting me. The Rights and Freedoms was a society of acquaintances of mine that have since become good friends, and they have been generously looking after me. I have a couple other um, things up my sleeve. I was at a convention, met a lot of people from up north, and I discovered that I've got a lot of support up north. So I'm going on a road trip next week, visit some communities in northern BC, and tell them my story. I have a famous preacher in California that I'm hoping to bring up to Burnaby as well to do a fundraiser for me. And I have a friend who in Abbotsford has a party room. We had a fun fundraiser there last November with a band and food, and at the Speakeasy it's called. I'm planning to do that again. So
okay. No,
um,
your trip to the north, and I think we'll close with this information. Um, where are you going to be? Do you have an itinerary yet, or it's
the itinerary is pretty loose right now. I'll be starting in Valemont, and I've got a couple of connections in Prince George and 100 Mile House. I'm hoping to do Dawson Creek, Houston, Smithers. I know I can't do it all in a week, but I have to be back for my tribunal on May the 21st.
sure?
Now, just hold it a minute. If I take my laptop along, I can. I don't have to be at home. I can join the tribunal from anywhere. I just thought of that now.
Okay, well,
So
good. So I will be back home on May the 10th, and if there's time in your schedule, we'll certainly want to set something up in the Smithers area. But we'll need to nail down a few dates. So in the meantime, people can support you this way, and if they uh, are in any of those locations you mentioned, 100 Mile, Prince George, whatever, they can contact you how and check on your schedule. Uh,
um, my, it's funny I don't. Oh yeah, there's my cell phone. My cell phone is right there at the bottom, 798-9425.
okay. And we'll include that information. And so people, what's a good email to write to you at?
an email to write to me? Well, better just to send me a text to that phone number.
Okay, very good. Call or text to that number, 604-798-9425. And Barry, we certainly hope you have a victory in this very unjust case against you. 7.5 years, that's, as they say, that's part of the penalty, is just how they drag things out.
Yeah.
Thanks for staying strong, standing firm, and being willing to pay the price to protect the next generation from the evil machinations of those who, for some reason have decided to go against the laws of God and the laws of nature. So thank you for taking the time to be with us on short notice this week, and especially as we celebrate the pro-life cause and remind people how important it is to protect innocent human life. And we're going to close on that. So Barry, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you for having me. Bye now.